Thanks for staying with us. So as at 21st of June 2020, 436 new confirmed cases and 12 deaths were recorded in Nigeria, bringing the total confirmed cases over 20,000. The cases keep increasing and are wondering what exactly is next for the country. Joining us to discuss more of this is Professor of Molecular Biology and Genomics Director, African Center of Excellence for Genomics of Infectious Diseases, Christian Happi. Good morning, sir. Are you there?
Good morning, ma'am.
Good to have you on the show. This morning, we keep reading in the papers the fact that it seems there might be a new strain because people seem to just be dropping dead. We got reports on Edo this morning that we're told that 20 people died. We're not sure. They said it's COVID-19. Delta State, actually. We just want to know, help us understand more about this virus this morning. Because we did read reports weeks back that we did have the same strain from China and Italy, but there's a possibility that there could have been a mutation happened already in Nigeria and we could be dealing with a whole new virus. Could you confirm if that is true, especially because you are in the front lines?
Well, thank you for inviting me to the show this morning. I just want to say clearly that about 2 weeks ago, we released a report based on genetic sequencing or genomic sequencing that we did in our lab at the Redeemers University, at the African Center of Excellence for Genomics of Infectious Disease, for which I'm the director. We released a report saying clearly that based on evidence that we have at the moment, there are 3 different strains circulating in Nigeria. The original strain that was found in Wuhan in China, then there's a strain circulating in the US, that is a B1 strain, and then the B12 strain circulating in Europe. So those are the 3 major strains circulating in Nigeria. This is based on evidence that we have so far, and it's very possible that there are many more strains circulating. We also provided evidence that the virus, has mutated. So there's a new mutation that we found in the virus, and this is the D614G mutation in the spike protein. And this mutation on the spike protein has been associated in Europe with more virulence or more infectivity and then increased transmission. So, but the point is, in that particular report, we have only 4 samples that we found among the ones that we sequenced. We're doing more, and then as evidence comes, we will make them available. But then notwithstanding, I think what we're seeing in Nigeria today is not due to the fact that we're dealing with a new virus or that the virus has become, that we're dealing with a new virus or it's a new strain. That's not true. I think what we're dealing with in Nigeria today is the fact that people generally do not respect social distancing, that people are not respecting government instructions, and that people really are going around, to do business as usual. You understand that in this country, at some point they say, okay, interstate border shut down. But if you move around, you realize for some of us essential workers, you see around cars filled with passengers moving around, and then really the question is, were those instructions respected? And these are things that actually probably spread the outbreak from one region to the others, or spread the pandemic from regions to the others.
Sorry, Miriam. What actually is causing this mutation? I'm a bit confused. Why we have all these strains, the one from China, the one from America, the one from all over the world, and then we have our own special one again. What is causing this? And then, sorry, I just wanted to do, because there are some people who have antibodies. Is it that we are building the antibodies and then the strains are... I think you understand what I'm trying to say.
I do understand you. I think the reality is that most of the cases, all the cases of the initial cases of COVID-19 in Nigeria were imported. They all came from these different countries, and then that is the reality. I don't think COVID-19 existed in Nigeria before importation from Europe, before importation from America, before importation from China. And that's why we find ourselves with those different strains. Yes, the virus is mutating. It's a virus. And remember, it's an RNA virus. The RNA is a very unstable molecule. And the virus, RNA viruses are subjected to be changed. To change, because they are absolutely is a very unstable molecule, and then it's supposed to be, it's so it's actually supposed to be evolving and changing. That's what we see the case for HIV. That's what we see in the case of flu, and then we see for this case. Also remember that the virus is under, what I call immune pressure, the pressure from our immune system, trying to get rid of the virus. And then the virus, because it's trying to survive, will also have to change and then adapt itself to survive better. It's always about survival.
Right.
Now, talking about immunity, people that are infected are developing immunity, but it's also been demonstrated clearly through studies that immunity is not 100% protective. And then it's also been shown that people that have had infection can come back with infection afterwards.
Right.
So I think it is very important that people respect what, public health directives. People respect exactly the directive given by the NCDC and the Federal Ministry of Health, by WHO and then the health authorities. We are not respecting this, but at the same time, we're the same people complaining. Why can't we just respect at least instructions, simple instructions?
Right.
It is when people are exposed, self-isolate, wear face masks. It's been clearly demonstrated across the world that by wearing face masks, we can actually curb down transmission. But look around us, how many people wear face masks?
Right. Okay.
Okay, yes. So my question now is the different strains that we have, what does that mean for us? Does that mean you have, because we used to have 7 to 14 days, for the symptoms to show, does that mean symptoms show quicker? Is that what is responsible for the fatalities that we have right now? Does it mean that we have more asymptomatic people? What does it mean, really?
What you see, fatality is related to high level of exposure, high level of infection and transmission. These are facts. And then it boils down to one thing. Are people isolating? Are people going around like business as usual? These are extraordinary times. And then as such, we need extraordinary measures. So if people are not respecting, social distancing, people are not respecting wearing face masks, people are not respecting, self-hygiene, washing of hands and everything, we will keep transmitting infection. Unfortunately, some people are on the line who have to pay the price for the neglect of others. And I think we have to be very, very clear about this. Following simple guidelines and instructions, save a lot of life.
May I just rephrase? Maybe I should rephrase the question. So there are different strains. We've said one that came from Italy, the American, and different places, and the one that is indigenously ours. What is the difference in the strain? What does that mean for a patient who has the one strain or the second strain, and another person that has the third strain? What is the difference? What does that mean? Are we getting sicker quicker? Are we dying quicker? What does it mean?
First of all, point of correction, I never said that there was a strain that was indigenously ours. I said the strain that are circulating in Nigeria were all imported. Yeah. So there was no indigenous strain. Okay. Now, having those strains means that there is a possibility that people, first of all, what you see here is a situation whereby if you have underlying ailment, then actually you are more susceptible. That has been demonstrated. So, and people with underlying ailment, if they get exposed, then you can imagine the case fatality to rise. Now, the mutation that you have seen, some of the mutations have been associated with increased transmission and then increased what I call pathogenicity. So that could be also associated with increased death. So, but then that is definitely yet to be demonstrated and then show a cause and relationship effect in the field. But it's obvious and clear that if we just respect simple guidelines, this is a disease at the moment that has no vaccine, that has no treatment. And we've shown clearly elsewhere that, following the guideline, just by doing social distances or physical distancing and wearing face masks can help bring down the transmission curve dramatically. The question is, are we respecting them?
Right. Yeah, I wanted to ask, what is how good is a face shield? Can you wear a face shield without a mask?
Wearing a face shield without a mask, I wonder whether if a face shield can prevent air particles, prevent bacteria, in the air particles that you are breathing. I think that doesn't resolve the problem. I think it's very lopsided to think about just wearing a face shield and then think that the air that you are breathing that is carrying viral particles will not get into your lungs. I think, it doesn't make sense as far as I'm concerned. You can add a face shield as an additional measure to your face mask. But saying that you're wearing face shield only and taking out your face mask, I don't think that is helpful.
Okay. All right, so let me ask about the knowledge the study that's ongoing within our shores here concerning the virus? Are laboratories equipped enough, our personnel trained enough to understand, and what studies are ongoing right now about the virus? What are we studying more? Are we still reliant on information from abroad, or is that something we're doing that's a bit different from what we have out there?
Something indigenous.
I think you should encourage and you should appreciate the resilience and then the indigenous knowledge coming from Africa and then from Nigeria especially. Yesterday, if you go and check in Premium Time, we actually sent out a report. If you check yesterday on on Premium Time, we developed a rapid diagnostic test that can detect this virus within 30 minutes. This is very new. And this is not an antibody, diagnosis. This is a diagnosis that captures and that can detect the viral RNA. So, and these are things that we should be talking about. These are things that we should be encouraging, creativity and innovation in the field. And this is exactly not just the case for Nigeria. I'm sure many Africans across the continent are coming up with a very innovative solution in order to address this problem. Early in the outbreak, 5 days within the outbreak of the pandemic in Nigeria, myself, my team, and then some young IT guys in my team came up with an self-assessment or self-screening tool. But unfortunately, I think the government authority didn't catch on this. And this is a tool that will enable people to sit at home, just go through that, and then they will know their level of risk, and then decide whether to go to the hospital or not. The tool had the ability to tell you which facility nearest you, and then also had the ability to inform, for instance, the NCDC, where the areas where the people at high risk are, so that we don't go around like blind people looking for just testing just anyhow. Unfortunately, I think I'm not sure that they caught on this, and it's a shame.
This morning I had read in the papers, and it says that the antibodies or the immunity you get having survived the virus can last you only 6 months. I don't know if this is something that we have seen, and please, what are your thoughts on that?
I'm not even sure that they can last 6 months. I mean, where is the evidence? We've seen cases across the globe where people got infected and got reinfected. So the question is, can that immunity protect you and protect you for that long? For some people, they will have what they call, for some people, they will have protective immunity, which is producing neutralizing antibody, but not everybody produces neutralizing antibody.
Have these rapid test kits been approved by the government? Because a friend of mine told me that some rapid test kits came to her area, they tested them, they were negative. When they went for proper tests, they were all positive. So have these ones that you're talking about been approved by the government, the rapid test kits?
This rapid test that we did, we just unveiled it yesterday. It has to go through the process of validation and then probably eventually approval by the government. But this test has been approved at the U.S. It has been approved already by the U.S. Food and Drug Administration. All
right, so if you are positive and after your 14-day isolation, you get tested again and then you are negative, are you advising that they should often enough get tested just to be sure that they still have the antibodies? Is that what you're suggesting?
The testing here is not an antibody test. What the government do and what we're doing now is, even with the NCDC, is you got to be tested for the presence of the virus, not the presence of antibodies. We know very well that antibodies are not fully protective, and therefore you get tested for the presence of the virus. That's what we're saying. So if you get tested for the virus and you are negative, and then at that moment, you will say you are free of the disease.
All right, let's go on a break. When we come back, we'll continue this conversation. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Thanks for staying with us. We still have Professor Happi with us. Waiki, you had a question.
Yes, I wanted to ask, the rate of tests that are happening in Nigeria are not, as at yesterday, I think, we had only done 115,000 tests for a country of 200 million. I think that's very poor. Is there a way that they're going to increase this testing? And then the second thing, can boosting your immunity help you to prevent this? Like my partner and I, over the weekend, what we went and did was we bought vitamin C, we bought vitamin D, and we bought zinc. Because we are trying to boost our immunity. Can this help? Because we are both...
Obviously. Obviously, boosting immunity will help you to prevent, not only COVID infection. I mean, will fight better, not prevent, but fight better COVID infection and then many other diseases. Immunity is actually your first line of defense before medicine and everything comes into play. So I think it's important to actually have your immunity boosted. But I don't believe that boosting is only by taking vitamins. So I think there are many other things, your physical activities and many other things contribute to boost immunity. I mean, the way your diet is also very important. I think all of those things contribute to boosting immunity. It's not just by swallowing vitamins that, you think you're boosting immunity. That answered that question. Then
Okay.
the level of testing, I think Nigeria is trying, and it's all over Africa, the level of testing is not adequate, and even all over the world. If you look at the situation in America, they haven't done as much. For a population of for over almost 400 million deaths, people, they've tried, they got like 25 million, but that's not good enough. And I know that Nigeria is ramping up the testing system. So they are bringing on board, other networks that are involved in tuberculosis and HIV testing to ramp up the testing in Nigeria. And I think, yes, it is not where we're supposed to be, but I believe strongly that the NCDC and then the Ministry of Health, they're working very hard with developmental partners, WHO, UNICEF, and others, just to name few, working very hard to ramp up, testing capability and the system in Nigeria.
Right.
Yes, one of the things that also was discussed when we first got the first case was that the weather somehow affects it. We heard a lot in the beginning that, because we're in Africa and it's sunny, we may not be so much at risk as other people who lived in temperate regions or really cold regions. And now we have the rainy season. People are asking, what does that mean for us? Does that mean that we are at higher risk because the weather has changed, or the weather really doesn't have anything to do with it?
I want to put it on record that the issue, the weather explanation for not getting COVID is completely flawed. If you look at Saudi Arabia with a temperature of 45 degrees below the shade, and then Iran with very high temperature, they still have transmission over there. So it means that argument is not tenable. So, and again, it gets back to our behavior as Africans. We always find reasons or for things that, don't exist. We think that bad things are always for others. So we actually we turn our wishes into realities and instead of preparing. So, and as such, I think that is not an argument. And we should think about, doing the right thing than to jump from, we're very hot weather, now the weather is coming down, things will get better. I don't think so. I think we should sit down and then do the right thing. Do physical distancing, let's wear our face masks, let's wash our hands, let's do the right thing. And I'm sure, together, if we do this, and then if they say interstate locking, so we should all stay where we are. And then to go and keep bribing police and then crossing the borders and keep spreading the disease. I think we should just basically sit down and stay put.
Okay,
and we'll see how this case is coming down.
I have two questions for you. This issue of, we've been going back and forth with the hydroxychloroquine issue for a while, and now WHO has thrown that out. But there's the dexamethasone that's what they're testing with now in the UK, and I think is being used here also in Nigeria. Could you just tell us how effective that is, one? Then secondly, because you are in the front lines, I'd like you to leave a message, aside from the fact that we should continue social distancing, tell us exactly what you have experienced whilst treating and researching this COVID-19, what you've seen that you can share with Nigerians that will make them understand the importance of adhering to these guidelines.
Well, first of all, adhering to the guidelines are very, very, very important because the guidelines are provided and then they are often backed by scientific evidence. And then that is one. And then the new molecule that is being used for treatment, remember chloroquine when it started, there were a lot of, question mark about the use of chloroquine for treatment of COVID. And actually in clinical trials, not only in Europe, but in US and many places show that wasn't really effective. So now we have a new molecule. So let's let the clinical trial, the clinical trial go on, and then we'll come back with the evidence, and then we should be able to know whether it's protective or not. And even if it is protective, to what extent is it protective? But then just taking the medications alone, I kept saying, is not enough to curb down this pandemic. Behavior are very important. Behaviors are very important. Let's follow the guideline. I keep insisting. Not everybody can be can be taking the medication. You can't produce enough medicine. That is a case for everybody to be taking the medication in to say, oh, I've taken medication, I can get sick. It's very, very important that we follow the guidelines. It's very important that we do the right thing. Now, in terms of, again, management. So, I mean, for this type of disease, if you realize chloroquine is not, chloroquine is not the best, then it comes down to what? To supportive therapy. Supportive therapy, which means that they probably just making sure that you're not dehydrated, to make sure that you have enough body fluid, and also like diet and everything. That's what they're doing for managing patients at the moment. I think, in absence of any vaccine, in absence of any medicine, that's what the clinical management, comes down to. Right. And as such, to avoid finding ourselves in the clinics, to avoid finding ourselves in hospital, let's respect the guidelines, and we'll see that we won't get sick, and we'll see that we won't be able to spread the disease.
All right, okay, go ahead, Becky.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, is it possible if you're asymptomatic that you can pass the disease? They're saying that asymptomatic people can't pass the virus.
Well, this is what the latest information from WHO, that asymptomatic people can pass the disease. But then the question is, there's a thin line between being asymptomatic and becoming symptomatic. So the question is, do we just, even when we're asymptomatic, do we follow the guidelines? If you are asymptomatic and then you wear your face mask and do the right protection, you won't pass the disease. But remember that you can be asymptomatic today and tomorrow you start developing the symptoms, right? So if we all were going on and then following the guideline, it means that whether you're asymptomatic or not, at least your possibility to spread the disease will be very reduced.
Okay.
Yeah, I have one last question. We've heard of the COVID treatment from Madagascar, and we're hearing about vaccines from other countries. I would like to know if, from Nigeria, if there's anything that we're working on that's giving us any form of confidence right now. COVID treatment from Madagascar, if you follow the news and then follow the trend, you realize that wasn't true. You can see clearly that Madagascar has a lot of cases, and then a lot of people are dying. So, and then in terms of vaccine, there are a lot of vaccine in developed out there, and then and they have not started. A few of them have started some clinical trials. And as you hear, for instance, in Nigeria, there are also groups working in the space of vaccine development. A few weeks ago, we were again on premium time because we are doing some work on vaccine development. We're not there yet, and we can't call it a vaccine. We're basically just developing the necessary ingredient to put a vaccine together. Right. We haven't done a preclinical trial that is testing in animals. We're doing this in collaboration with the University of Cambridge. So hopefully we can actually, once we provide the data, for instance, that, well, maybe the vaccine candidate that we're actually developing confers some protection in animals, then we start thinking about doing some clinical trial, phase 1 clinical trials. Right. If you can show that can protect the human, then we can say we have a vaccine, but at this moment we don't have a vaccine yet.
We have to wrap up. Let me take a few tweets from...
Sir, there's a tweet for you. It says, sir, brief us on the role of blood groups as explained by the American CDC. Blood group O has less chance of contacting the virus. Cases is as a result of increase in testing. We should work more on finding the immunity against the virus. Well, he's asking about the blood groups.
Well, we saw that, that report from the US CDC that people blood group that O, seems to be more resilient or seems to be less susceptible. The reason for that is not very clear, so I think it's still being studied. And then once we have the evidence, and then we'll have, again, this is basically just saying that this is an observation. The mechanistically to explain the reason why people with blood group type O are less susceptible to the disease is not clear. So, but that definitely comes with, as the person mentioned, with the level of testing. And I think as we test, we're going to see, is that the same trend? We don't know. These are observational studies. Right. But also remember that the trend in Africa is very different. So if you look at the number of deaths in Africa, it's very low. If you look at the number of, maybe we're not testing much, but it's obvious that the case fatality rate in Africa is much more lower than what is observed elsewhere.
Okay, let me just get a few more tweets for you.
Yeah, so a couple of people are actually saying that the Commissioner for Health had said it's transmitted via droplets, this virus. But you mentioned something about air particles. They're saying, has the information changed? When she had asked about the face shield, So if it's really from droplets, can the face shield protect you? And if you say it's airborne, has the information changed now?
The question is that when you talk about droplets are in different sizes, right? So some will get directly, heavy droplet will probably just go to the floor directly. Some that are less heavy will circulate for some time. Those that are less heavy, again, the tiniest particle will circulate for a long time. My argument is this. So if you have droplets in the air, right, and you are inhaling the air without protection, I mean, are you not more exposed than to just say you put a plastic around your face, and yet you are inhaling the air? I mean, where is the air that you're inhaling coming from?
Okay, we have
If
to
you're
wrap
talking
up.
to somebody in close, if you're talking to somebody in close distance and then the person is contaminated and you think you just have like a face shield and the air that you're inhaling contains viral particles, are you not going to get sick?
Professor, honestly, I have to go, but honestly, everything you said so far, it seems like we are more or less doomed or something that it's inevitable that many of us are going to catch this. I don't even know. I'm a bit more confused. I think you even depressed me more this morning.
No. I kept insisting on the fact that let's do the right thing.
Right.
The problem I keep saying is that we are not respecting the
guidelines.
we're not respecting the guidelines. We are saying, if you look at the guidelines of WHO, you look at the guidelines of NCDC, face shield is not part of it. People are just trying to do things for convenience. Face mask is what we're asking people. Go and check. We don't have face shield. Where is face shield coming from? Coming from in this whole thing.
Thank you so much this morning for explaining and elaborating on quite a few issues we've been dealing with. Thank you very much. We've been speaking with the Professor of Molecular Biology and Genomics, Director, African Center of Excellence for Genomics of Infectious Diseases, Professor Christian Happi. Let's go on a break. We'll be right back.
He hasn't made us happy.
You can watch Your View on TVC every Monday to Friday, 9 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. Nigerian time on DSTV channel 418, GOTV channel 27 and channel 47, StarTimes channel 121 and channel 307, Play TV channel 801 and channel 190, UHF 49, Sky channel 515 for UK viewers. Watch live on Facebook at TVC Connect and on our website tvcentertainment.tv/livestream.